And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to Behind the ToolBelt episode 216. Today, we have another special guest. Stay tuned. We will be back after our short intro from our sponsors.
GC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutters, solar. GC Backer.
Is your lead flow down? Whether you're a company owner, office staff, salesperson, or installer, you're a roofing rock star. We help you get more leads with custom SEO, Google Ads, and a pro website.
GC Backer.
Well. Here we are again, episode 216 of Behind the ToolBelt. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you haven't already, please like, love, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are now live on Facebook, obviously, and then YouTube as well. So we're live on YouTube. So subscribe to that channel and check us out on Apple Play and Google as well on the playback. So thank you again. We have another wonderful guest, Ammon, my man. How are you, brother? How's it going?
I'm doing really good, man. I just got, still getting over COVID. So I got some lingering sinus pressure and crazy stuff going on, but overall can't complain.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So it's been quite a while since we've spoke. We haven't seen each other for a while. Remember, I think the first time I met you, it was at a Revolt retreat. It was a free retreat down in Gatlinburg at least 2 years ago, maybe a little longer than that. I believe you were the one that signed me up, weren't you?
Yeah, I remember. It was the easiest deal I ever made. I just, we had our pitch, and then I came and sat down with you, and I said, "So what do you think?" And you were like, "I'm in."
Yeah,
good.
I went with a purpose.
Yeah.
For sure. I don't even think I was beyond being on the fence. I already fell off the fence and was leaning into needing something in my life at that time. We had a small conversation before going live here, just, self-improvement and stuff like that. And trying to reach that next level and how to do that, right? Stepping outside my comfort zone usually is what that takes. And for me, that was one of those things. I drove 8 hours to Gatlinburg by myself in my pickup truck. To a remote location in the mountains of Gatlinburg and stumbled upon this beautiful cabin that we were at, and a group of like-minded young men were there, and the coaches, you guys. I think that's where I met Ken Yance for the first time too, to be honest with you. He was doing his Be Real thing, but that has definitely changed my life, not just professionally, but probably most importantly personally. And I feel like that's kind of where our conversation is going to head today, is that personal growth um, mindset. We've been talking a lot about mindset and not so much on the mental health aspect of that, but have touched on that. But I think mental health is something that a lot of people don't like to talk about, whether it be men or women. Whether it's an uncomfortable conversation, or maybe we feel like it's a sign of weakness if we share with somebody that I'm experiencing insecurity, self-doubt, and maybe even deeper than that. When you really go down into that dark, deep pit of self-harm, over drinking, thoughts of suicide, whatever, however deep you allow yourself to get there, and a lot of times it's because we don't reach out for help.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I wanted to pick your brain a little bit on those things, because I know you've been around the block. You've been a leader, a pillar in your family and your community and things like that. And I know being an entrepreneur, and you being in leadership positions, that you had to have had experienced, self-doubt and insecurities and all those things. So why don't we talk a little bit about that, and then maybe we'll circle back to a little bit on some of your professional experiences of like where you worked and how you got where you're at today. If you don't mind, we'll kind of do this and reverse engineer this a little bit. Maybe that'll lead into where you are today.
Yeah. I mean, I guess just on that topic, mental health, it's not something I ever really thought about growing up, like, cause like you said, we grow up where our goal is to be like macho and masculine. And, I was just my whole life was football when I lived in high school, or when I was in high school. And so like everything was all about just getting to the next level, in like my physical appearance, my strength, my speed, my size, and just performing better as a football player. And I never really thought about like my mental health or like taking time for myself or anything. And I wasn't, I grew up in a religious family, but I wasn't like necessarily like I would go to church because my parents took me to church, but I didn't really, never really prayed or like embraced it, I guess you could say. I didn't like reject it, so to speak, but I didn't embrace it. It was just kind of like a part of my life because it was a part of my family's life. And then I always had it in the back of my head, like as soon as I graduate high school, like church isn't going to be for me.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am, 13 years after high school, and it's the complete opposite of that. Like my faith is everything, and it took a couple years after high school for me to have kind of that smack in the face of like, hey, dude, you really do need God in your life. And
Mm-hmm.
I won't go into that too much, but I turned a direction and went and served a mission for my church for 2 years. And that is really, that kind of laid the foundation for my mental health, because I lean on my faith a lot. Everyone has their thing. I dive into the scriptures. I dive into prayer. I read now, I used to read a lot of business books, and I found, once you learn enough about a certain thing, it's like more information is kind of redundant. You just kind of need to just keep doing that thing and improving personally and learning through experience. So I kind of got jaded with business books. I haven't actually read a book in a couple of years, like finished a book. But I just recently started reading, other than my scriptures, that's all I read. But I just recently started reading a book from a recommendation by one of my football coaches growing up, called Bonds That Make Us Free. And it's like, I'm like totally engulfed in it. And it's a mental health book. But it's not what you would think. It's all about how we interact with other people and the way we treat others, and not the way we treat them per se, but the way we think about them.
Mm-hmm.
And have you ever heard of the Arbinger Institute?
I believe so.
Yeah, there's that book, Leadership and Self-Deception, that goes around a lot. So it's like one of the unknown books that one of those guys that started the Arbinger Institute wrote. It's like a really unknown book. But I read all those books, Leadership, Self-Deception, all that stuff. And then this one, it's really good because it makes you step back and think about, you know, really every problem you have with another person is just you projecting what you think that other person should be doing onto them and not really understanding them. So anyways, to kind of, I guess, summarize what my thoughts are on mental health recently is just like take care of yourself spiritually, whatever that means for you. Take care of yourself physically. Eat good. I don't eat the best. But I don't go crazy. And then the next one is just like managing the relationships in your life. Because I would venture to guess that most people who struggle a lot with mental health, it's directly connected to relationships they've had. And in fact, I'm not a scientist or a psychologist or anything, but I think that's probably 100% fact that anybody that struggles with mental health, it's in some way related to a relationship they had in their life. That would be my guess, at least.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I mean, it could be from a parent, a bad relationship with your parent, or the way that you were treated, or the way that you felt that you were being treated, whether it be, abuse or mental or physical abuse at that. But, this is such a great topic because, I don't think, again, it's probably really uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about spirituality or religion, and there is a difference between spirituality and religion, right? You can be, a big time Bible bumper, and find your spirituality that way by attending church on Sundays and stuff like that, and feeling that sense of, that's where you get your fulfillment from, right? Like the sense of fellowship and camaraderie and being a part of something, right?
Yep.
Other people join other groups to find that fulfillment and that sense of fellowship and camaraderie, and we try to do that here at TC Backers, is create a camaraderie, right? We get involved and we tackle tasks and stuff together and feel that apartness, that alikeness, in ways like that. And, and some people might find it other ways. Spirituality can be found, in nature, right? Going for a hike with your family, with, those who, that you love dearly, and spending that quality time. So it's kind of like a twofold thing, right? Like, so you're going out into the wilderness, or and whatever, down to the lake or to the beach or the ocean, right? And you're spending good quality time, with your family and stuff like that. I know for me, when I feel like I'm banging on all 8 cylinders, like that's at least 2 or 3 of those cylinders. If I'm operating on 8 cylinders, right? Is the relationship and the quality time and those promises that I made to them, right? Whether it was a verbal promise or that consistency, just, that being consistent and present in their life. Right. And I think a lot of times we don't realize or identify that, we just know something's bothering us, but we don't know what it is. And usually it's because we're lacking somewhere. There's a deficiency in the time that we're spending at home with our family, the quality time, or procrastinating at work, not getting tasks done, don't know how to manage my time wisely. These are all things, and I'm speaking from experience, going through my head right now, because this is live, raw, and uncut and unscripted here. So I'm just sitting here thinking of some things that I do to myself to sabotage myself. Not enough sleep, right? I have a regimen of things that I try to do at the house, particularly in the morning. And Mike Claudio talks about, win fast, win often, right? And I talk about a little bit, I kind of a little spin off that is, stack as many wins as quickly as possible. Right. And that's in the morning. And the first win for me is just being able to open my eyes and put my feet on the floor and gasp a sober breath that morning. I'm waking up sober. Right. I'm able to wake up. My eyes are open. I read from 2 books in the morning, Ryan Holiday's Daily Dad, and daily reflection. It's a daily affirmation book. It's a spiritual book. It's not a Bible or anything like that, but it's where I go to seek my spiritual advice from.
That's cool.
Along with some other literature. And so that's 2 wins right there, 3 wins. And then I always take a cold shower. Right. And that's just
Big
been,
win.
yeah. Right there, I've already stacked, 3, 4 wins out of the gate, spent a couple minutes with Jana, spent a couple minutes with Rocket. Now I got my armor on and I can go out. And I just heard something today. Actually, I was listening to a podcast this morning. I can't remember the guy's name, but he takes a cold plunge every single morning under 50 degrees. And the reason why he does that is because he feels as if there is nothing more complicated that he'll have to deal with, or more, if he does that, gets enough courage to get into that cold plunge every morning, there's not going to be anything more difficult throughout the course of the day that he won't be able to handle than getting into that cold plunge. And I thought, that's really cool, because a cold shower is one thing, but when you engulf yourself, embody yourself into, 49 degree water, that's quite a system shocker. But there's certain things
49 degrees is a lot colder than you think it is if you've never sat at 49 degrees. It is freezing cold.
Heck yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of this has to go into self-awareness. Like, what don't I like? What makes me feel uncomfortable? What have I not been doing? What do I need to be doing? What should I be doing? And I think a lot of that goes into, and we talked a bit about this last week, is those promises we make to ourselves and break, along with that tarnished or bad relationship that you may have had when you were younger, that manifests into a negative in your life, opposed to allowing it to manifest into a positive, and using that adversity to overcome things. Some people kind of get stuck in that.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. One resource that I've learned a lot from, just about, life and mental health and, what's important that isn't necessarily spiritual, is I love Jordan Peterson. His books, I've read all his books, 12 Rules for Life, Beyond Order. The Maps of Meaning one is like 36 hours long on Audible. So it's like, I've read some of it, but not all of it, but that one's pretty long. But then he's got a series on the Daily Wire. Like, anything from Jordan Peterson, I gobble that up, because I feel like that guy kind of, like, he takes a stance that everyone can agree with, regardless of religion or political affiliation. Well, he does talk about politics a lot, but everything he talks about is like rooted in like what's scientifically true, and one thing, his first rule that he writes about ever in any of his books is stand up straight with your shoulders back. That's the first rule that he writes about in his first book, or it was his second book. But like, when he wrote 12 Rules for Life, he thought this has to be number one. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. And I think that's a really cool mental health tip, like for anybody, even just to physically do it, stand up, put your shoulders back. It just makes you feel more confident, more in control. And so I love that. Like, anybody that's listening that's like struggling or needs to start there, I would just download Audible, start listening to Jordan Peterson's books, because man, they're so stinking good. They helped me a lot. I probably started listening to them 4 or 5 years ago, and I just love listening to the guy. So that's a good resource that I like to listen to. And every now and then I'll just pop on one of his like lectures that he does on the Daily Wire app and just listen to his lectures, because they're live, they're unscripted, and it's really cool to hear him. Like, he just picks a topic beforehand, thinks about it, and then he just gets on stage and he just riffs on that topic. I think those are the coolest ones to listen to, because it's not scripted, it's not planned, and he's reading the audience. And if he's going down a direction that he can tell people aren't engaging in, he brings it back. It's really cool.
I love that. That sounds like how I kind of try to do it too. I'm a non-scripting PowerPoint, proactive type type of person, more
Yeah.
more reactive to how the crowd feels or the vibe that I'm getting in the few speaking engagements that I've done. But I was sitting here while you were talking. I was thinking about when you were talking about in high school and being physically active, and playing a lot of sports and stuff like that. And I don't think you said that you felt like you were in a better mental state back then, but if you were, do you think it was because you were physically active, like whether it be exercise, watching your weight, sleeping well, and then on top of that, the fellowship and the camaraderie that you felt being a part of a team effort?
Mm. Yeah, you actually just gave me a really good thought on that. Like literally split second, I just kind of had this little epiphany because you making me think back to that. I was in a pretty good mental state back then. I was physically active, but I had not a care in the world, man. I mean, I was having fun with friends. My parents, middle class, I didn't have all the nicest stuff or anything, but I wasn't like poor by any means. And so I had like a really good childhood. I had really good parents who taught me a lot. I was a knucklehead. They had to discipline me a lot. But at the same time, like I had a great upbringing, with all the challenges I had. But the difference between then and now is I had like no responsibility. I had not a care in the world, nothing, nobody to be accountable to other than my parents and my teachers who I didn't really give a crap about. And like, the only thing I could think about was my selfish desire to be a all-state running back, like there's a lot less pressure. There was a lot less pressure back then as opposed to now where, I'm a department lead now in my company and I manage a bunch of clients. I have 2 kids and a wife and a house and a truck and insurance and all, taxes, all these responsibilities that we have now as adults. And that's where I think, going back to Revolt, that's where I think like the first Revolt retreat I went to, it really kind of like, I told Hunter this when after the retreat. I said that was the most impactful experience I've had since I went on my mission for my church. And it was 7 years between when I got home from my mission to going on that retreat, because nobody does those things. Like we get so overwhelmed with all these responsibilities that just stack up as we get older. Like life doesn't get easier as you get older. You think as a kid, you're going to have all this freedom, and it's like, it's not freedom. It's like more responsibilities, like more bondage that you're in for all the bills and the people that look to you for solutions. And to take those 2 days in a weekend and like invest in yourself, it meant a lot to me. And that's why I ended up joining the team over there. And so I think stuff like that is so needed. And to do it in a community setting, nobody in that group is a mental health professional. You know what I mean? Like we're all just kind of a bunch of redneck roofers. Like, nobody there is like an expert on, nobody's a therapist or anything, but it was therapy. I think you could agree with me on that.
Yeah,
like it was
100%.
Super therapeutic to just talk with other people and air things out and get things off your chest and writing your own eulogy in the words of somebody that loves you, like stuff like that. We just don't do those things in our society. It's not encouraged. It's not something that people generally think about. And I think, looking back, I don't think I've ever thought, hey, I really have a problem with mental health. Like I got really depressed at one time when I had an injury that set me back physically for a really long time, like 5 years. And I did get pretty depressed and gained like 50 pounds. But I never got too far mentally into that negative space. It just like, it sucked,
Yeah, it's more situational.
Yeah. But then, on the tail end of that is when I went to that retreat and I was like, holy crap, man, I've been neglecting this part of myself for a really long time, So I think as adults, we all have to have a community like that. It doesn't have to be a therapist. I mean, but I think it'd be cool to go see a therapist and find out what's really wrong with me and fix it. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be just people who care about you. And I think that's the most important part, is like being around people who want the best for you, care about you. Nobody's going to be perfect. Your relationships in life are always going to be challenging, but to have a community of people who want to lift you up, I think that's one of the best things you can do for mental health.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. A lot of good stuff in there. While you were talking, there was a lot of good points there. The group therapy part of that
Yeah.
group of people, right? And it goes back to the fellowship and the camaraderie and being around like-minded people who may have suffered from the same situations that you have. And I think the biggest thing too, at least for me, I think most people worry about being judged, right? So if you can be like in an atmosphere of a judgment-free zone area where you feel like you can be really vulnerable, and I think everybody needs that person or group that they feel, and like you said, it could be a therapist, right? And I think that's the thing. Like a lot of people don't know like how to deal with things so much, and the hardest part for me is just to reach out and ask for help. Like, hey, I need help. I'm struggling here, but I really can't put my finger on it. But do you mind just listening to me for a minute? So then maybe I can hear how ridiculous it sounds, or maybe it doesn't sound that ridiculous to that individual that I'm sharing that experience with. And I think the hardest part is finding either that group or that individual. And there is nothing wrong with getting a counselor. Ed Milet talks about it all the time. I think he's a part of, I know Ed Milet, and he's a big, freaking influencer, huge,
Yeah.
the biggest right now. I think he's the biggest paid
Yeah.
influencer on the circuit right now is Ed Milet. And he talks about going to see a therapist. And I think he even runs an ad for finding a therapist or something like that. And he talked about it just like it's no different than having, everybody's got every professional athlete has a coach, whether it's if you're a baseball player, like you got a coach that works with you on strengthening your arm muscle. You got a coach that works with you with accuracy and all different types of things. And again, we were talking about sports and stuff like that. You could use sports with so many different analogies and stuff like that. But it's okay to reach out for help, whether it's in a group setting. I know a lot of people that attend the same groups that I attend, and some of them are probably even on here watching and listening to this. And being able to get honest feedback in a judgment-free zone is, I think that's where the difference is between somebody that goes 5 years of a situational depression, right? Because if any depression that I've ever experienced myself was situational. There's clinical, I guess, clinical depression, and then there's situational depression. And I've put myself in situations where it was an injury or whatever the situation was that had created self-doubt, all those things that make me feel insecure, right? Because that's and really what it comes down to fear. Fear is one of the biggest driving forces that people don't even understand, that like how fear motivated we are, whether we're not going to do something or we're going to do something based out of fear, right? And the fear of being judged, the fear of not being able to complete something, fear that I'm going to gain something, fear I'm going to lose something. And to be able to get that, they say a problem shared is a problem cut in half. And I think a lot of people don't understand that if they just open up to somebody and say, hey, man, and Vic and I had a conversation about some things that's been weighing on me here. I'd say probably over the past few months. And, and that's the thing. And I'm going through the uncomfortable daily tasks that I put myself through. So nothing's really changed other than my mindset, the 6 inches between my ears on how my perception of things. Right. And it's like, why did that start happening? What situation happened several months ago that kind of deviated me from my mindset that I had before? And I would have probably never figured that out if I wouldn't have gotten it out of my head, verbalized it to Vic. And we were both, it was funny how we both had like that aha moment.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And the crazy thing is that he was experiencing something similar along the same lines as I was. And if I would have just opened up to him freaking 3 months ago, maybe I wasn't ready. maybe the timing wasn't right, but like, why did I put myself through all that anguish, that pain, that self-doubt, that insecurity, all of those things? And I think in a leadership position, we can't be that vulnerable around people. I think we think that, right? Like
Yeah.
we're the guys supposed to have all the answers. And then what happens is you start struggling with, and we talked about this, decision fatigue. Like, God damn it, I just can't make another decision right now. Like I'm
Yeah.
done thinking, stop asking me questions, or and then nothing happens. And then you kind of start doing that downward spiral where it's like, I can't deal with it anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean that transparency, like you said, I think it's like you said, when you said a problem shared is a problem cut in half, it really is like therapeutic just to get it out. And there's like there is like science behind that I just heard something recently where, you know, it was some kind of study where people who write down their problems, like their problems just tend to go away, you know, like the more you just get stuff out and just unload it, the more relieved you're going to feel. And I think it just goes to like not isolating yourself. You know, I think everyone who's depressed, anytime I've ever been depressed, it's because I'm not sharing or asking for help, or it's like you just get in a bubble and you just feel sorry for yourself. And that's where, you know, just asking for help can be hard sometimes because we have pride. We think people aren't going to care. We think nobody understands me, or I can't look vulnerable to this person because they're my direct report. But I mean, I got sick last week, and you know, the two guys that I run underneath me on our team, I was just like, guys, I'm totally effed right now. Like, I am not going to be good at this job for the next like 4 days because COVID smacked me really hard. And they were fine with it. You know, it was just like, all right, dude, we got your back. We'll step in and support as much as we can. And, you know, it's Wednesday. I'm still behind on like 87 messages that I need to respond to. But I know that like just sharing that with my team was therapeutic for me, because it's like, okay, nobody's going to be pissed off. Everybody understands Ammon got sick, crap happens. So just, you know, transparency, I think, is therapy in and of itself.
Yeah. Transparency and vulnerability, being vulnerable. Right.
Yeah.
And that can also be a double-edged sword too. I guess being too vulnerable or too transparent at times can injure us or even them at times. And that's sometimes that's a little difficult to navigate. But one thing that I was thinking about when you were talking there is what made the difference in that situation, Ammon, is the consistency prior to that. Right. They knew they could rely on you. Right. Up until that point. And it's called the, maybe this is a little far-fetched, but this is just what I was thinking, but the trust bank, right? Like every now and then we got to pull out a deposit, you know, but you built that trust up to that point. It's like, okay, I'm sick. And they had no problem filling in for you, filling your shoes temporarily. But that again, also touches a little bit on that fellowship and that camaraderie. It's like, you know, because the culture is strong, and I'm sure it is because I know you well enough to know that you work in an atmosphere where the culture is strong as shit. So when you were absent, your team filled in for you because of the consistency, because you don't pull this every other week. You shoot up, you show up, you grind it out. You're there. You're probably the first one there, the last one to leave. And even when you're not there, you're still there. So for you, and then because that's the kind of person you are. So you are your own worst critic because you can't even allow yourself to be sick. You didn't even probably want to approach them, right? Like, and how's that saying go? Oh, I can't, I won't even get it right. So I won't even try, but it's something like, you know, those that don't do enough think they do too much. And then those that do too much think they're not doing enough.
Yeah.
Something like that, whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what you kind of probably mentally tortured yourself on, like, man, am I going to go to work? Aren't I going to work? Am I going to show up?
Yeah.
Or am I actually going to take care of myself? And again, that goes into mental health, right? Like, I got to rest in order for myself to get better. I need to shut down. And that's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard for people in a high level, producing position that we're in. So let's talk about that a little bit. So did you give yourself, and how did you give yourself time to rest, or didn't you?
Yeah, I think I really did. Like in the past, I would have been really, really, really stressed about, holy crap, there's so in my job, I have like 3 or 4 functions now. I used to just do account management where people come in, they need our help growing their business, growing their sales team, marketing related things. And so I had like 70 accounts that I would manage. And, we're doing every 10 days, we're doing a coaching call with them and answering their messages in Slack all day. Is a really fast paced job, but it's like one thing that you're doing. And then November, I cut my account load down to like 40 from 70. And I started doing marketing copy reviews for all the other account managers, which there's 10 of, by the way. So their clients, I got pretty good at copywriting and writing ads for people, learning from my boss, Cole Gordon, who's a freaking machine. I've learned so much from the guy about just everything business related. But now I'm in charge of marketing support for all 700 clients. I'm in charge of leading the marketing support team, which is just 2 guys now. We need like 8 more. I'm in charge of affiliate revenue, like managing relationships with all of our affiliate partners. And I still have 30 accounts to manage. And so it's a lot of pressure, and it's like a growing phase for me where the plane is not built, but we're flying it anyways. I literally, like, I have such a good manager. His name's Igor, and he's really, really strict with us about, like, take time off. You have to take care of yourself. It's such a high, like, stress, high, like, intense job. You have to, like, unplug. And so when I got sick, I mean, a year ago, I would have felt so guilty for rescheduling my calls. I would have just felt terrible. I would have felt like people are going to ask for refunds, and I would have just had all this guilt. And Thursday, I woke up and I was just like, I'm cooked. Rescheduled all my calls for this week. Nobody was pissed off. Everybody was fine. Told the team that I was just really feeling crappy. And I took the weekend. I barely looked at my phone. I barely checked it. And I literally just laid on the couch with my wife and kids. We were all sick. And just, I just let myself rest. And that was the first time I've ever really done that, where I just completely unplugged. And I'm not even stressed still. I still have so many things I got to get done. But the attitude I have towards it is like, hey, look, worst case scenario, if someone's pissed off, we can always give them an extra week in the program for me being late on something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, the outcome is never going to be as bad as you think it will be, or as you suspect it will be, if you get sick or drop the ball on something. It's like, we're all human, and everyone should understand that. And there are people who get pissed off about dumb things, and they're like, oh, you didn't respond to me in 5 minutes, so I want my money back. And it's like, look, dude, that's not like a professional way to think. We're all busy. And so anyways, yeah, it was good. It was like a good growing experience for me to just totally unplug. And still this week, I've got 8 gazillion things. I'm working late almost every night this week still, but I'm not stressed because, I've had good leadership that sets the precedent for me. That's like, dude, take care of yourself, get everything done when you can get it done, clock out when you need to clock out. And, it's very alternative to the attitude I think we're like preached about, is like, you got to grind till midnight. You got to
Yeah.
sleep 3 hours, wake up in the morning, cold plunge, work out for 8 hours, go to the like it's I manage myself with high, I guess, high standards, but low expectations. You know what I mean? Like, I have high standards for myself and everything I do, but I don't just expect everything to be done and done right now, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Totally makes sense. And I like that point that you brought up, how your teammates or your management team looks at things too, because that's the thing, with the old school mentality, and I still believe it to a certain extent. Early on, I was the first one here and the last one to leave, and killed myself 7 days a week, and honestly don't think that we would be where we're at today, nor set that precedent of the accountability thing. But this is the thing where it's evolved over the years, where it's kind of like a blend of high performing and stay until the job gets done. Like, why
Yeah.
put it off till tomorrow when we can do it today? And being able to fill in for people when they take off, because of the consistency, and it's not an annoyance, because they know that they would do it for them as well, right? So if you can build that culture and that expectation, and kind of like that trust bank up with your team, where everybody's got that trust for everybody and that consistency. Like, I know usually at 6:15, Kim's over in her office. By 6:30, Stacy's up in her office. So we don't have like a clock in, clock out time. Like by 8 to 5 is it, the time. And it's like, usually when somebody starts here, like, well, one start time, and it's kind of like, we'll be here by 7, you know, but you'll feel when people start to come in, because what happens is, when you do that, they'll come in at 7, they'll realize that half the staff and their coworkers have already been here for an hour and a half.
Mhm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then all of a sudden you start seeing them trickle in around 6:15, because they don't want to miss anything. Plus they have that sense of, I'm letting my team down because I haven't
Yeah.
been here for an hour and a half. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, you almost got to pick and choose your battles wisely. It's like, I don't really give a shit about the clock on the wall that you got to punch in and out of. Like, we don't have that, other than on our production side. We do have a clock in, clock out for accounting purposes. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, because we just need to, at the level that we're at, we need to know where the money's going, kind of thing, and how to bid jobs and things like that. But if you can have the mindset, or the atmosphere of, like, when you're here, we need you here. So if you have to go home and let the dogs out, or get the kids off the school bus because the babysitter's sick, then that's fine. Yeah, go ahead. Let somebody know that you're leaving, obviously, just out of respect, in case I walk over to your office and you're not there, nobody knows where the hell you are. But it's such a tight knit group upstairs that everybody would have knew where they went.
Right.
If the dog was sick, or the baby was sick, or the baby, whatever the case might be. Um, and typically what that'll do is you either level up, you either get pushed up, or you get pushed out, right? Because if you're not pulling your own weight, you're going to know it right away. If everyone's performing at a high level, and this is the other thing too, if you kind of keep that open like that, you tend to get more out of an individual if you kind of allow them the freedom to leave when they need to leave, clock out when they need to clock out, as long as they're being honest about it, clocking in and clocking out, right?
Yeah.
They'll go home. They're more apt to go home, get the kids off the bus, and fling open the laptop to finish out where they left off when they had to leave work.
Yeah.
If you can create that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, I think that goes right along with, like, just having high standards. And when you're in an environment where people all have really high standards, you feel like you either have to level up to that standard, or you just don't belong there.
Mm-hmm.
And our team is the same like that. We don't have a lot of policies or things like that. Like, we have core values that we stand by, 5 core values that we live by. But then, like, our team, especially the team that I'm on, we have 10 account managers, and we have 2 people in the marketing support department. And it's just like, we're all just grinding, and we talked about it today on our team meeting. We did a SWOT analysis of our team, and it was like, dude, everybody can do this job to a 10 out of 10 quality rating, like every single person here. And because of that, one of the guys on the team said, who came from a different team, he was like, dude, the standards are just so high that you feel like there's no option other than to elevate yourself, which is really cool. And I think that, again, ties back to mental health. Like if you're in an environment like that, it's only going to make you happier, better, more positive. If you can get on a team like TC Backer, it can make all the difference in somebody's life, because you're just not, maybe you just don't have enough positive relationships in your life where people like Ty Backer can come put his arm around you on your first day and say, hey, how you doing, man? It's really good to meet you. Shake your hand. And it's like, holy crap, this guy runs a huge company and he just called me by name and shook my hand. That's so cool. Never had that happen before at a job,
Yeah.
So it's really cool. It's a really cool topic because, community, I think the essence of life, like what makes life meaningful, is family and community. And I think families are found in communities. It doesn't have to be blood. You and me could be brothers. You and me are brothers, right?
Absolutely.
Even though we don't talk a lot, anytime if I call Ty Backer up, he's gonna have my back, no matter what. I just know that. So it's cool to have people like that in your life.
Absolutely. It is, and this is the deal too, especially when it comes to the workplace. Like we spend more time here than we do with our own family. Most cases through the 5-day work week, right? Like, let's face it. So why not create an atmosphere of joy, fellowship, camaraderie, oneness, accountability, and accountability. I think a lot of times when people hear the word accountability, they think it's a negative, like, oh my God, he's holding me accountable. But at the end of the day, and we've talked a lot about this, accountability means success, right? Like we want to see you succeed. If the company succeeds, you succeed. If you succeed, the company succeed. And it's this rotation, this circular rotation of things. Like if everyone's succeeding, it's growth. Accountability is growth. And at the end of the day, that's all we really want to see for everybody. And if you're going to be here, whether it's 6 hours a day or 12 hours a day, why not have and create, and Vic, we just listened to it today. Why not create a culture and a company that other companies want to replicate? And why not create a culture that everybody wants to work for? Right? Isn't that what we're trying to do? Like re-recruiting our team, like our retainage. Like, let's talk about retainage. Let's talk about recruiting. How easy is it for your company to recruit people? If it's not easy, then you might be the problem. If your retainage is horrible, well, then again, you might be the problem. What I'm saying? So if you don't have a problem, if your team is recruiting people for you, and then there's a laundry list and a stack of resumes that you get to sift through, you might be doing something right. And it's not even about the pay. I mean, yes, it can motivate, but it's not everything to want to suit up and show up and come to work every day. It's not about the pay, right? I'm sure people were mostly happy on Fridays because the direct deposit was there. But if they were miserable because the atmosphere was horrible when they showed up, the money doesn't matter. They would go someplace else for a pay cut because the atmosphere was much more comfortable. They weren't being hazed. They weren't being picked on. The attitude sucked. There was no lack of communication, no vision, no drive, and no growth. But if you can create an atmosphere of growth, right? Like, where am I going to go? Is this the end all to be all? Nope, not at all. You know what I mean? If you do this, you can do that. And if you let go and train someone else how to do that, then you can move into another position. And if they're good people too, the team has a lot to do with it too. Not just the leadership and being in the position as long as I have. It is choosing the right people for the seats on the bus to be able to perform at that level, right? That we're hoping that they can perform at. But if they're good, they also make other positions for themselves. When they're here, they create other jobs for themselves, so then somebody else can fill in that place. And that's kind of what happened. And I wish I could say that I was smart enough when I set out 17 years ago, and these were the steps that we were going to follow so we could build a roofing company that, and just as a funny, we're saying, we're a roofing company that does marketing, but today we're a marketing company that does roofing. But
Yeah.
not are we just marketing to the public for our services, but we're also marketing ourselves to recruit other leaders,
Yeah.
to attract other leaders, whether it's in our community or 9 hours away in a community over there. And again, that happened by mistake. It
Hmm.
really did. And I think it went into just treating other people the way that we wanted to be treated as an individual. Right. Like I've worked for people. I've worked for myself. I've been on both ends of the spectrum. And it's kind of like, well, how did I want to be treated when I had worked for somebody else? What benefits did we want? What hours did we want to work, or whatever the case was? I think we implemented it. And I think the biggest thing was, and thank God this was a skill that came kind of natural for me, is that it wasn't even about me, even in the very beginning. Now, there was a fire that fueled the fire to grow the company as rapid as it did, but where half of that came from is like, oh shit, Keith came to work for me, and now I know he's married and he's got 3 kids.
Hmm.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Now I went
Yeah.
on the back burner. That driving force, the original driving force went away real quick when it was like, oh shit, here's Friday. Friday comes around and it's like, I need to make sure Keith and his family eat. And then when you actually can bear that, and I recognize and identify that burden now, right? That's a big motivator to make sure that he's got everything that he has, but not just that, but his kids have shoes to wear for the first day of school.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't know that unless I was a parent, but I want him to be the greatest parent that he can possibly be and get his kids new sneakers for the first day of school as well. And when you can look at it like that and treat people with respect and dignity, and want to see them succeed and improve the quality of their life, and that's where personal and professional, it all starts here. It all starts here. And that's what's so cool about the topic that we've been talking about is because, it starts with your personal, what am I doing outside of here? Not even outside of these walls, in order to make me a better human being. So then I can be a better father, a better co-leader, a better son, a responsible, productive human being of society. What am I doing? And when you can, and you started to touch on this a little bit, and it's not really a religious thing or a spiritual thing, but the purpose, our purpose, and this is the bottom line, right? And we've been probably teach this. The purpose in life is to serve others. And if it's anything outside of that, it's just selfishness.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's what this book that I mentioned in the beginning, Bonds That Make Us Free, it really is about just turning outward. It's like fixing your own problems by helping other people with theirs. You
Hmm.
know, and like you said, I think you're just naturally that kind of guy, um, where you wake up thinking about other people. You probably got somebody new on your mind every morning. Hey, we just hired this person. We got to make sure we get them their tools or whatever. Like
Hmm.
you just wake up thinking about other people rather than waking up thinking about, oh my gosh, I got 85 people who are all barking at me and I just need a freaking break. You know, there's a big difference in the quality of your life when you have those two different attitudes. I would I would put it on the line that 100% of the people who wake up the way Ty Backer does are happier than the people who wake up thinking, man, I'm so overwhelmed.
No doubt.
All these people are barking at me. My life sucks. Like you just can't be happy when you wake up thinking about yourself, I guess. So yeah, it is. I mean, you do have to like we talked about earlier, you have to do the self work. You do have to think about yourself. You have to fix things. You have to take care of yourself. But the purpose of that is so that you have more of you to give to other people. And that's what I see. That's what I saw in you from the very beginning, man. When I met you, it's like you carry that presence of like you're just a good guy that like, you don't have very many selfish thoughts. You think you have more selfish thoughts than you do, I think, because anytime I ever talk to you, you're always like the first person to admit your flaws and how selfish you are and how bad of a person you are. And then everyone around you is like, that none of that is true. He's like the best guy ever, but it's cool to have leadership like you, where you're humble, you want other people to be successful. And I think that's a big, we have the same type of leadership in our company. And if you look at maybe not necessarily the biggest companies, but the best companies where people are happy, the numbers on the scoreboard don't, they matter, but they're not the most important thing in life. It's like what, the quality of your life. And if you look at the best companies, not the biggest companies, but like TC Backer, Closers.io, yes, it's high performance, high standards. We're all going for results. We're all going for growth. But at the same time, the culture is really good too. And everyone cares about each other. I guess my last thought from one of my leaders, we were just talking yesterday on our one-on-one. He goes, he got some leadership advice that you always have to be skeptical of your team. Like, never take their word for it. Always be skeptical. And he was like, I could not disagree more with that. He goes, I want to trust you. I want to know if I pass you the ball, you're going to make the shot. You know what I mean? I want to be able to pass you the ball and just know that ball is going to go in the hoop. Like that's what I think, makes you a good leader, makes our leaders good leaders, is just like, dude, I'm going to pass you the ball. We've practiced, we've drilled, we've done everything we need to do. And it's your time in the spotlight now. And people love that. Everybody loves having a win that they can get patted on the back for, and everybody in the company rallies around them. It's cool.
It is cool. There's a couple of things there, delegating, right? And a lot of that has to do with trust. And when a person feels and knows that leadership trusts them, that's a game changer right there. If they're working for a paranoid, and paranoia to a certain extent is a good thing. It really is. But if you don't delegate things to trust people, now that in itself comes with a lot of self-reflection upon that individual that's delegating, right? Like, so you have to work on your tolerance for mistakes.
Yeah.
This is the deal. You need them to make mistakes. You need them to drop the ball every now and then when you pass it to them. Okay.
Yeah.
With that comes experience. How did I fumble the ball? Right. And without that experience, there's no growth. So if you're not delegating, your team's not growing. Right. They need to make the mistakes. Hopefully it's not a costly one. And two words that I've learned that has been some of the most powerful words, just two simple words, is you decide. You decide. Like when someone comes in my office and they're like, hey, it's like, you decide. And then they're like, oh shit. Oh okay. I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm okay. All right. That in itself, like, or hey, I need help with something. Like if I go over to somebody else's office and say, hey, I need help with something. That again, vulnerability, transparency. I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers, but I need your help with something. Who knows what that conversation looks like at the dinner table at home when they get home. It's like, hey man, I helped Ty out with this thing. We built this thing out and it was so great. And he took my input, man. And I ran with it. Just let me run with it, or that, man, my boss is such a fucking asshole. He doesn't give me anything to do, or that's the difference. Like asking for help and saying that you decide can change an entire culture of a company's momentum, of which direction and the growth, not just as the company, but the individuals that work within the company, the growth that they have personally and professionally. Their home life's better. Their work life is better. Speaking of which, before we get off here, I wanted to talk to you a little bit because when you said that when you were sick, that you got to chill with your family. right? The
Mhm.
whole family was sick. You guys are vegging on the couch watching movies and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
myself included struggle with finding that work-life blend. How do you personally manage your time and prioritize self-care while handling multiple roles, being a father, being a husband, being a son, and being a leader at work? How do you prioritize that, and how do you handle that?
That's a really good question. I think the biggest like liberating thing that's happened to me over the last couple years is I just like gave up all the aspirations that I thought I needed to be aspiring towards, if that makes sense. Like
Mhm.
I gave up thinking I needed to be the big baddest best guy in the world. You know what I mean? Like we look at guys like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Mark Cuban. Like, dude, all these guys have been divorced. People hate them. Like their closest relationships, they don't have good relationships in their lives. And if that's what it takes to be a billionaire, like, dude, I'm happy not being a billionaire. And I don't think I ever really aspired towards being a billionaire ever anyways. I mean, it'd be cool. I would love to do it if life takes me there. But I would never want to like sacrifice my values in pursuit of that. And there's really, really good dudes that have built huge successful businesses that, you and I could probably name tons of them. But I think the biggest thing that I just put all that aspirational bull crap on the back burner, and I just wake up like, how do I be the best husband, dad? How do I be productive at work? Like it's just more focused on the now than on the future. That was like number one for me. And then how I manage it. I mean, there's nights where I work super late, and there's, days where I just get off right on time and I go hang out with my kids. And it's just being intentional. I know that's super like overdone
Mm-mm.
advice. But when I'm sitting there with my 5-year-old, okay, we have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Mhm.
2-year-old's all cute. He's like, says funny things. He's learning new words every day. And just like thinking about them and having awareness, our 2-year-old gets a lot of attention. He's the baby. He gets all the cuteness, love. 5-year-old, he's like in school now and being kind of a knucklehead sometimes and like making mistakes. And we want to make sure we're like, he gets in trouble and gets disciplined more than the 2-year-old. And so he thinks that, sometimes we are unfair towards him and we don't discipline the 2-year-old. He doesn't understand. He's only 2, dude. We
Mhm.
can't really discipline that kid yet.
Mhm.
But having that awareness, I try to be intentional with my 5-year-old and be like, you did a really good job today, or so cool to hear you had a good day at school, or man, you did really good at that task, or like just like empowering him a little bit to know that, hey, you're my guy too. You're not just like the bad 5-year-old that just gets in trouble all the time. Like I want him to know dad's got his back and he can come to me. So I make time for little things. It's like 5 minutes here and there where, last night I went and snuggled him on his bed for 5 minutes and just talked to him and cracked a couple jokes. And he loved that. He just
Mhm.
appreciates stuff like that. Because I knew we paid attention to the 2-year-old all night because he was throwing tantrums and lots of stuff. So it was like, okay, Dax needs at least 5 minutes to know that dad loves him. So
Mhm.
that was like just a small example of how I try to be. And then same thing with my wife. I'm probably the worst with my wife. She probably gets the least of Ammon's attention of anybody. But when I do, when I am proactive about it, I
Mhm.
just want to make sure she knows that she's special, she's important. I love her. I love her more than the kids, like they get a lot of attention because they're always causing problems and stuff. But yeah, it's tough to manage. But as long as people know you care and that you love them and you take
Mhm.
a little bit of quality time for them here and there, I
Mhm.
think they're a lot more forgiving of, hey, it's going to be a late night tonight, because it does happen. It's always going to happen if you're gonna grow, if you're gonna be successful, you're gonna make it takes time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. The biggest takeaway from that is, when you're there, just be present, whether it's 5 minutes or 5 hours, being present. And
Yeah.
I still struggle with that too. We set up, little certain times and stuff like that. And it's hard for me to still put the phone down. And that's what I mean. I'll pick up the phone, scroll Facebook, check emails, check text messages, listen to voicemails and stuff like that. But I am getting better of being present when I am present, because it's one thing to
Yeah.
be there, right? Like, yep, I made it, I'm here, but that's not what they want. They want your attention when you're there with, especially your kids. So what a great podcast. We're at an hour and I think 5 minutes. But Ammon, man, let's stay in touch, man. Let's nerd out on some personal growth stuff at some point in time, and,
Yeah.
and let's get back on here and get a group of us on here, like you said, do a little round table action.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I think that'll be a lot of fun, and maybe some of the old crew from Revolt or Fuel or something like that get a little reminiscing happening there, and
Yeah,
the
that'd
days
be
of Fuel and the early days of Revolt and stuff like that. But thank you for coming on, and thank you everyone for tuning in today, man. It looked like we stayed strong. A lot of viewership this week. We appreciate that. Don't forget to share it. Don't forget to like it, love it, and even rate us on Google and Apple and YouTube. And I think Zach Fisher said we should stream this live on YouTube. It is actually on YouTube live right now. So you can listen to it with your headset. He's a truck driver. He likes to tune in and listen to us. So Zach, thank you for tuning in and commenting in there when you can. So you guys have a great day. We will see you next week. It will be Chris Markey from To the T Outfitters, one of my mentors, one of my great friends, local guy. So he'll be in studio next week. So you guys have a great day, and we'll see you next week for episode 217 of Behind the Tool Belt.